Oh, yeah, sorry, just brief introduction before we get going. For speaking, if you're within about hands width of the microphone, and if you can, it still does pick up some noise even when it's not on. So, but yeah, when you're speaking for the audience and the YouTube streaming, for them to be able to hear it, you need to be on. And as the chair knows, when we do have an audience, they do need to go up to the microphone, not because we're super, super formal, but more because otherwise no one in the outside world can hear what they're saying. So. Yep.
Okay, I'd like to call to order the Sebastopol Planning Commission of October 10th. I looked a little fuzzy there. And first item, the roll call, please.
Thank you. Planning Commissioner Hanley. Vice Chair Fritz.
Here.
Chair Fernandez.
Here.
And we do have 2 absences tonight. Kathy Ottinger is scheduled absence, and Commissioner Burns had a family emergency.
Okay. And before we go to comments from the public, I wanted to welcome our new commissioner. Glad you could join us. And
Thank you.
if there's anything we can do to help out, let us know.
Thank you.
Okay. Comments from the public on items not on the agenda.
And so we have received several comments for the item 5A on the agenda, which we'll get to in a moment, but we have not received any comments for items not on the agenda.
Okay. All right, go ahead and close.
And actually, since we do have public in the room, if you would like to make a public comment for an item not on the agenda, if you could in Zoom either raise your hand, that's probably the easiest way, raise your virtual hand. That would be helpful. Then we can unmute you. We are requiring, because of Zoom bombing, just so you all know, that we unmute as people are called on.
And
Okay.
do you guys mind turning your videos on? Turn on your video, please.
Okay, I do not see any public comments.
Okay.
So on items not on the agenda.
Okay, then I will close public comment. Oh, you want to allow them to go on the video?
Oh, yeah, Susie will do that. Again, that's
Okay.
I'm sure you've all read in the papers, the
Yeah,
unfortunate
no.
incidents at public meetings recently,
That's
and we
fair.
have had that as well. So
It's very
we are
prudent.
taking some additional precautions
Yeah.
so that our audience can have a normal public meeting.
Okay, we appreciate that. Item number 3 is statements of conflict of interest. Any commissioners have any conflict of interest?
Yes, I do. I live within 500 feet of the subject property, so I'll have to recuse myself.
So that would be for item 5A, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Just in
All
case
right.
we have other items on the agenda.
Got
Which
Yeah.
one is it?
Okay.
Yep.
Anyone else? Nope. Okay. Then we're going to move to item 4, approval of minutes. If we have any changes, additions, or put table till the next meeting.
Right, and just as a rule of order, a commissioner who was absent from the meeting is able to vote on the minutes if they have reviewed the video. However, I don't think that applies to commissioners who were not commissioners at the time. So I'm not quite sure on that rule. So staff would recommend that you continue it to the next meeting.
Yeah. Okay, and commissioners okay with that? Okay. All right. Okay, so now on to item 5A.
Okay, so with that, Seth, we will ask you to leave the room. Yeah, you can leave your
And then-
computer and everything there. We will,
You
so
will
as
let
part
him
of
know.
recusal, I'll come and get you, or Susie will come and get you when we're done with this item. And Cody, can you close the other door, just to make sure? Yeah. Oh, or John, yeah, sorry.
Okay, item 5A, public hearing for 7233 Hillsburg Avenue, Piala use permit.
Okay. This is a use permit amendment. However, with the recusal of Commissioner Hanley, we do not have a quorum tonight to hear this item. We do anticipate in 2 weeks' time, on October 24th, our commissioner, one will be, back from her scheduled absence, and the other back as well. So we would ask the commission to continue the item to the date certain of October 24th, so that anyone out in the audience, in the Zoom land, and otherwise would know what date it's continued to.
Okay.
Do we need a motion to do that, or can we just?
Well, since we have a quorum, right, I can just.
You can
I
just
do it?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah,
just
we'll
do
go ahead
that.
and
Yep.
continue it.
Yep.
There's no objection. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I guess you can come back now.
Yeah. So yeah, and so I do see we have some members of the
Oh,
public.
I'm sorry. Excuse me. For a second.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, if there's members of the public.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we will be holding the presentation and all public comment until the 24th.
Right.
But of note, the staff report is available online if you'd like to look at it. Under tonight's meeting, we may have an addendum for the next meeting, just given some questions I've gotten from commissioners. I anticipate that, but there is a staff report, and the application materials are online on the city's website under Planning Commission or city meetings. And as I noted, we will be continuing this to October 24th. It will be at the same time, 6 p.m. Regular Planning Commission meeting. So if you would like to attend, that will be the date for that hearing. And if you do have any public comments, you can also, from the city's website, send their links to our emails. You can send them along that way. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Good idea, because some people might watch this later. Okay, then before I go to 6A, let's.
Yes,
just come
I think
back.
John went to
So I'll
go
hold off for a
get
sec.
our newest commissioner. Or you could just say rescheduled, because they'll understand that if they don't, continued means rescheduled, but, postponed until, postpone is probably the best word. And Zach, for tech support, we can go ahead and change the placard to the next item. Which is actually going to be the item 6A, the training. Perfect, thank you. And just so you know, Chair Fernandez, there were a couple people in the chat on Zoom, so we are posting into the chat that it's being postponed to the 24th, so they know.
Thank you for that.
What? Yes, sorry, yeah. I thought you went out to get him, sorry.
Okay, welcome back. Moving on to item 6A, Commissioner Training Video. I'd like to recommend that we continue this one to another meeting when we have more commissioners present.
Sure, and just background for our new commissioner, and I believe I talked to you about this in orientation. The Planning Commission last year requested that we do a group training, which we'd like to do when we have the full commission, because there's often, and we put it as a regular agenda item in case people have questions or want to discuss something afterwards. It's a planetizen training, and we will be getting you access to that. All the commissioners have individual access through Plan Edison, so we purchase it for each commissioner. We are about halfway through the training, a little bit more than halfway through the training, and so there will be, some items that they're about range between half an hour and 50 minutes or so on various topics like general plans, public meetings, protocols, that kind of stuff. And so we'll get you access to that.
Great.
But and we'll let you know where this group is at so that you don't read ahead, so to speak.
Okay. But I can catch up.
But you can catch up,
okay.
yeah. I mean, you can read ahead if you want to, and then you'll be the know-it-all in the classroom. I know.
Thank you for that.
Okay, any subcommittee reports? Item 7? I think we do. Okay, and let's go on to planning director's report.
I'm trying to think because we've been meeting so much with that subcommittee, with the design guideline subcommittee. I was trying to recall. Did we? Yeah. Okay. Right. Okay. So planning director's report. We have quite a few. We've been very, very busy the last couple of weeks. So we have quite a few updates. I guess the first is the active transportation plan is ongoing. Do we have the website? Okay, on our website, we have links to and information on that. But one thing that is also happening is Caltrans has started to do their active transportation plan update as well. So we do have information on that same webpage. So we don't have 2 web pages, but we have active transportation plan and then information about both of those projects. The kind of other Caltrans update, as we talked about last meeting, Caltrans did award the city of Sebastopol a sustainable transportation grant. The acceptance of that grant and authorization for executing on the contracts and the contract amendment or the budget amendment for that for the city's match is going to be on the city council agenda next Tuesday. That report will be available soon. I believe tomorrow actually is when the packet gets published, Thursday at the latest. And one of the things that I have been asked is what is the scope of work and what is the content of that. The city engineer and I did have a meeting a couple of weeks ago with Caltrans. They had some modifications to the structure of our scope and how it was arranged and a couple of questions. We have since modified that, and so that modified scope will be in that staff report as well, so it's open to anyone in the public. But it is looking at downtown streets planning and redesign is kind of the easy name that we're calling it. It has a much longer name in the grant application, and that was actually one of the suggestions they had, is that you might want to think of something a little bit more catchy and shorter. But that will be on the agenda. We will be looking to get traffic engineering and public outreach consultants to help us. We have such a small staff. We just need that supplement. And that project will likely start about January, once we get all the paperwork finalized with Caltrans and get a consultant on board. I did actually meet with Vice Chair Fritz and some other members who had been part of a group that was trying to generate support for that application, and wrote a number and gathered a number of letters of support for the grant, which frankly probably helped us get the grant. So I met with them just to talk about what, get some preliminary input from them and provide some information. We do look forward to doing that in the future as well. A couple other things settled out on that is that the planning department will be managing that grant. It was originally submitted through the engineering department, but because it's more comprehensive, looking at coordinating with SCTA and Caltrans and the county, and it's much more of a kind of a planning framework than a traffic engineering. We felt it best to go through the planning department, especially with the public outreach that we want to be able to do. So we have revised the plan. It does include participation plan kind of outline that will be sort of looked at more closely once we have the consultants on board as well. So that is one of the grants we were awarded. The other grant, which is the Association of Bay Area Governments Flexible Zoning Planned Priority Development Area grant that we received. I had a call with our contact at ABAG yesterday to talk that through, and it's the same kind of process now that the grant is awarded to us, really getting the paperwork done and the scope for that. That's also going to start in January, February kind of timeframe. And so that actually will look at the 116 corridor as well as the Redwood Marketplace. I have met with the owner of Redwood Marketplace and let him know about the grant, and he's very interested in being engaged in that process. So we're looking forward to that. And as you know from your even last meeting, use permit of for conversion of an office to a residential, which required a use permit from our planning commission right now, even though it used to be a Victorian. That's one of the components that we want to resolve outside of kind of the downtown area. So it's actually kind of nice. We have one grant that will cover looking at the downtown circulation and how that all works and how that can impact our community vitality there. And then we have another grant that kind of looks at the corridor outside of that on 116. So I think that's going to be a really great project to do both of those in tandem. And to do all of that in conjunction with both Caltrans and the county's active transportation plan. So hopefully all of this kind of comes together. I did also meet with the library ad hoc meeting. This is Councilmember Zolman is assigned to this ad hoc to look at potential. There's a recommended expansion for the Sebastopol library. It's about half the size or slightly less than half the size it really needs to be. And it has been for at least a decade. So we met on Monday and talked about some different possibilities and strategies, partnerships with a mixed use, those types of things that might be able to help with the financing and with the potential site for that kind of a thing. I believe he will be reporting that back to council, but that's a kind of a work in progress at this point. And other things that are going on, John and I actually met with Habitat for Humanity today. As they have the vacant lot across from Safeway is approved for 4 townhomes, and they own the site. They were donated the land, and it's sort of a please someone put something there kind of a spot, and mostly a weed abatement thorn in our fire chief's side. But we met. They are actually going to be partnering with San Francisco Habitat to do the project. And so we met with their construction logistics person, their financing person, and their director today, along with the local Sonoma County Habitat. And they are, well, their building permit is in, and there's a couple of pieces missing, but so there's some corrections they need to provide, but otherwise they're getting close to having their building permit. So that project is moving along. The other high-profile projects in town, the Woodmark project on Bodega Avenue, which is phase 1 is 48 units of, 47 units of farm worker housing and 1 site manager. But that is under construction right now. If you go past, they are looking to finish their off-haul of dirt in the next week or so. And they are, pouring retaining walls and doing a lot of the site work, tightening that up, hopefully before the real rains start. They have applied to put in a very large engineered tent. Basically, that would cover both of the building sites on the bodega frontage so that they can work without weather interruptions throughout the winter. So we're, that's a planning director level temporary use permit because it's 6 months or less. But just so you know, when a really big tent appears out there, what that is, it's and that's actually a nice idea because then you don't get the mold or the humidity in the building materials, which is I think a wise move. We have several items coming up to the city council in the next couple of weeks. One is we will be opening up recruitment for boards and commissions where terms are ending. For the Planning Commission, we have 2 folks in that group. One is our newest Commissioner Hanley, because he is filling the remainder of Commissioner Kelly's term. And then we also have, I believe, Everett, your term is coming due. But that full list will be on the next meeting agenda, and that's kind of kicks off the, I believe, is it a 6-week recruitment period, Susie? Okay. If you do have any questions or want your last application back in a PDF form, let Susie know and she'll be able to get that to you. Or if you have anyone who you think would be good for the commission or any of the other boards, we have Climate Action Committee has about half their members. This is a 2-year, so it's every other year, every year about half of their committee terms are up. And we have a couple of design review board seats as well. And let's see, the other items we do have a quarterly report for the housing and homeless liaisons. That's myself and Vice Mayor Rich will be on the agenda next Tuesday as well. There will also be a quarterly report for the SAVES. That's the Horizon Shine Safe Parking RV site on the north side of town. That went through this group, Commissioner Hanley, and then it was appealed as a temporary use permit for temporary safe parking for the RVs. And that was appealed to City Council. So both City Council and Planning Commission get that quarterly report. Yours will be coming to you on the 24th as well. So, so you'll see the report. If you have any questions, if you do want to look at the council report, it'll be the same report coming to you. But if you have any questions you want us to ask the Sonoma Applied Villages as the operator of that site, you can just let me know and I can, we're working pretty closely with them on their operations. Let's see, we have the Caltrans that. We do have 2 other items that were going to be on the agenda, but they've been postponed just because of a very long agenda council is going to have otherwise. One is the Planning Commission work plan. And so that is the work plan, which I have just, so you know, Everett, I have sent that to Seth, so he's aware of kind of what the proposed upcoming items would be. They've asked that that and the level of service report, which usually will also come to the Planning Commission afterwards, be postponed to either November 7th or the first meeting in December. And so Everett, as chair to liaison to that, I can work with you and make sure you're available for that meeting.
Okay.
And that is not a required item. I'm sorry, I'm trying to give a little more information just so Commissioner Hanley is kind of caught up to speed since we
Thank
have
you.
a little bit of time tonight. But that is something that allows us to make sure that we're on the same page as council. So council reviews it. A number of the items are like those grants and things like that that we just kind of talked about. They're within a specific time frame, so we have to do them within that time frame. But the city council can also kind of deprioritize or move stuff up and down in that order, or provide direction on those items. They can also add to those items. So one of the items, because we just adopted our housing element in January, one of the grant that's looking at Healdsburg Avenue zoning and South Main zoning along 116 is one of the policies and actions in our housing element to look at that zoning and see if requiring a use permit for conversion or residential only, if that can be resolved and be allowed by right, and under what circumstances, which is what one of the main things that project will look at. That is in our housing element, but we do have one of the items on that of other items in the housing element that may be of interest. And the city council did get a presentation from Sonoma County Legal Aid about tenant rights. So there may actually be some discussion this year in terms of direction to what they might want the commission to act on sooner rather than later. And hopefully all within the capacity of the department. So those two items have been moved, and I think that's it for our items for next Tuesday. There was, at the last council meeting, a water and sewer rate study. And the council is looking at potentially, the results of that study, in essence, are that to maintain the system with deferred maintenance and other kind of production costs, that there is a need to adjust the rates. Council did not make a determination at that, but I believe they're looking at a public hearing the first meeting in November, I think. I'm not sure, in which case the Planning Commission work plan would not be on that meeting because that'll be probably a pretty lengthy meeting. And I think that's all I have. Actually, sorry. We did, for the Public Art Committee, they have a community sculpture garden call out now. They have 5 sculpture pads available. They added some new ones. And so that is out now. They did, at their meeting earlier today, they extended the deadline for that till December 7th, I believe. Is that right? Thank you, Susie. December 7th. And so if you know of anyone, and that's really focused on Sonoma County community artists who want to display their work, they're available for purchase, so display for free. And then after the year or so of display, if someone wants to purchase them, there is no entry fee for the competition. It's a community project in a way. And then we also went to, one of the commissioners and myself attended the regional parks meeting, and we do have approval to do a third commission. So our next commissioned, and it's a $25,000 commission that we'll be releasing November 1st for the site that is a little triangle of land at the start or end, the trailhead of the Joe Rodota Trail on Petaluma Avenue. So it's kind of the entry to downtown. And so the Public Art Committee is trying to get art pieces at each of the entries. So the Michael McGinnis, in a way, is the entry to downtown from the west. And their future is kind of looking out on Bodega, out at the city limits. And then the Ned Kahn sculpture, which we just completed the building permit and it's been approved for the actual installation of that. His fabrication is done. And I think he's working on the installation logistics. So that will be on the east side, just west of the Laguna and north of Sebastopol Highway 12, Sebastopol Avenue. So that will mark the east side of town entry. And so this one was seen as, because we don't own a lot of property on the south side of town, and it's Caltrans right of way, which we're trying to avoid that complexity. This was an opportunity and to not only mark the start of downtown, but also of the trail. And so that the park commissioners were very excited about that. And so we will be releasing that call November 1st, and it'll be due the end of January. So that's an exciting project moving ahead as well. John, did I miss anything? Okay, City Hall is moving offices around, post-COVID kind of rearrangement so that the conference room is back into its former order and usable as a conference room. There is a budget subcommittee meeting tomorrow in that room, tomorrow morning, and that'll be part of the discussion next Tuesday, as well as revenue and projections. So John and I have moved offices to the other side of the building, and the city manager to where I used to be, which apparently used to be the city manager office. They're getting it all back in order before the city manager recruitment has closed, and that's about all I know about that one. So that's being handled by council.
Okay. Well, maybe you'll have some space next door if the library moves somewhere else. You can use that extra space. Just a question on comment on the art. I'm assuming they put the word out, and including, say, Annalee High School, It'd be kind of neat to be able to like reserve something for the high school, but I don't know how they do it.
That's a good point. We do have a list of folks that they've gathered. And we were actually talking about that today. I want to make sure we get it out to people who might be interested, but I think it's a good idea. Can you add that to the list, Susie?
Yeah, I mean, they could, depending on how, either they can just entry like everybody else, but if you had a space for them, they could do some kind of contest at the school and then the winner, or however they choose.
Right.
Pretty
Right.
recommend. But yeah. So
Yeah, I think this call is set, but I know they have talked about doing themes and or reserving space for like Annalee or Santa Rosa Junior College, which has a sculpture department and that
Yeah.
kind of a thing. So.
Okay. And then regarding scheduling, so I talked to you about the idea, Paul wanting to do a walkabout. I think it may be difficult to do it, to plan a meeting, a regular meeting. So I'm thinking either do something before or a special meeting just for that. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I don't know, doesn't necessarily need to be.
Yeah, and
discussed or-
actually, I mean, so we are allowed to talk about future meeting agendas. So this
And,
would be,
Sorry, one more thing. And
Sorry.
I think what's also important for that is that I think that ties into the housing element and the transportation plan, what you want to do. So I think it would be good information for that.
right. And I do know that the Sustainable Transportation Grant also has a couple of walking audits to actually, walk those areas and look at that. So I think, thank you for reminding me with everything going on. I kind of
Yeah,
forgot
well,
about that one.
Yeah, and then you can let me know and I'll coordinate with Paul, see what works. And
Right.
figure out
Do
a way to
you
do it.
all have locations that you'd like to make sure we visit? Or we can either talk about that now. If you have ideas now,
Yeah,
that'd be
so
great to
I
hear.
did kind of a preview, like walk with Ever at night. So just bring you up to speed. So my idea is that there's a lot of, particularly in the older neighborhoods of town where we have, existing uses that are kind of would not be permitted today, or, things that setbacks and things that, the way we, built the city before we had zoning codes. Then we got zoning codes and we ended up with like, the subdivisions out by, the west side of town and the south side of town. And I just think that there's a lot of opportunity if we kind of go back to sort of the traditional part of town and so we just did a loop, and my thought was we could start at the library, and maybe do like a little preliminary conversation about, what we're going to look at, and then just really like a loop, like High Street to like Wilton to Main Street, down Main Street a few blocks, maybe to either Willow or Calder, and then back to High Street, and just kind of look at, downtown, Main Street, talk about how, the couple main blocks of Main Street, like we actually couldn't build today because you have to provide parking on the property, and how do we do that? And just like some of the houses, the setbacks and uses and things like that we used to allow, but we don't. So just, it's only like a 30-minute little jaunt, depending on how long we talk. It didn't take too
Right.
long when Everett and I did the loop, but that's kind of the thought. And it could be, if people have ideas to go beyond that, certainly we can go down side streets or make it bigger or whatever.
Right.
But that was kind of my preliminary thought.
I think that's great.
Yeah.
So I would say, given the time of year and the fact that it's pretty much dark outside,
Yeah.
and I mean, umbrellas and things like that work.
Yeah.
if needed.
Yeah. I mean, we could either start a meeting at 5, but even like if it gets too late, once we change the clocks, even 5 o'clock is dark.
Right.
So,
Right.
it would have to be either. Yeah.
And we could meet and then meet just for that, and then go home in a couple hours or 3 hours, whatever, then come back to the meeting, or
Right.
just different
Or
options.
just do it on a day that works. Can I ask, just because I know, or we can talk about like schedule stuff later. That doesn't need to be like, when are you in town? When are you not in
Yeah.
town? But I think that's a good idea, and to do it. So just so you know how that works, because we've done that with our design review board a couple times.
Mhm.
John's done it, and it's been really useful.
And I think it was
Um,
similar to like the park meetings we've done. So we did like the Ives
Right.
Park one, and we did the
We did at
Libby
Libby,
Park,
yeah.
and
So we agendize it as a public meeting, and anyone is still welcome to join. It's a public meeting. And we did actually have folks join us at Libby Park, which is great. And if we do it as a special meeting, then we don't need to do kind of any of the, I mean, we can keep the logistical stuff to a minimum, like the minutes and stuff like that. We don't have to have that. If we do it as sort of an early start, that's one way of doing it, or just as a whole totally separate day. That works better. I know we've had a couple meetings that got canceled because of special city council meetings and stuff like that. So that's, and yeah, we just need to find a time that works for all 5 commissioners. And I think the 3 you are and Debbie are working, so you probably have the hardest schedules to work with. So we can talk a little bit afterwards on kind of when that might be. Right.
Great.
Okay, any other questions, staff? Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, I said, what's the status of the city ventures? Are they coming forward anytime soon, or?
Oh, yes, they have done their formal application. John and I actually just got the administrative draft, which is the staff review level, non-public draft of the EIR report. We're actually meeting on Thursday to review that, and then the consultant will need to make their modifications. And so we anticipate that the public draft will be available later this month. And then we will have a planning commission meeting to do the public hearing for the draft comments on the EIR. I will try to frame that a little bit with a little bit of CEQA education, either before or at that meeting, or before, at a different meeting. We could have done it tonight, but actually we couldn't, because it's critical for all of the commissioners to kind of understand it. So we'll either do an overview as part of the planning commission meeting, or at a prior planning commission meeting, just to kind of refresh. I know we have not had an EIR here since I started working 5 years ago. We've had mitigated negative decks and initial studies, but not a full EIR. And so just kind of the protocols and the process surrounding that. So yeah, and their proposal is for 80 units with moderate inclusionary. I think would be 12 of those. But they are, because I know they did the preliminary review with both the Planning Commission and the Tree/Design Review Board. They heard the interest in universal design from Commissioner Kelly. And they actually have more than required ADA units. So that is actually, it's a really great thing, especially with our demographics and the need in town. And they're kind of adaptable with actual residential elevators for the units in them. And then they have, I think they're 3-bedroom units, where the 3rd bedroom could actually be built out as an ADU instead of a 3rd bedroom. So there's a potential so they have 80 full units, and then the potential for 16 ADUs as part of that. So that's kind of up to the buyer. So it's an interesting kind of flexibility in that way. That was sort of in responding to the desire that it was an appropriate site for potentially more density than what they had otherwise presented. So
I also had a question about we talked about doing a joint DRB Planning Commission to review the objective design standards.
yes,
Is that?
yes. So this is a bit of a subcommittee update in a way. So we have a design guidelines subcommittee, which Vice Chair Fritz is on, as well as 2 of our design review board members. They've been helping us develop the objective design standards, which the design review board's final review of the objective design standards, or their next meeting, I should say, is October 17th. I won't jinx it. If needed, they have October 24th as well, and we're hoping that they can wrap it up so that we can get it to council on November 7th. We do have a deadline by the end of the year to adopt those for the grant that we're using to pay for that. But we are also developing SB 9 standards, which is the single family lot split law. The legislation was passed a couple of years ago. The consultant is working on the refinement. So we've finished our subcommittee meetings to review that. They aren't going to finalize the draft until after the objective design standards, because as you recall, there's some standards that are kind of the same between both documents. And so we want to make sure that they're, because for the city, it doesn't necessarily matter if it's single family or multifamily, it's the standard that's important to us. So they'll be finalizing those. And then we have to put together the actual implementing ordinances as well. We are planning, however, when that comes around, to do a joint meeting with the Design Review Board and the Planning Commission to have both bodies hear that. Technically, the DRB does not need to make a recommendation under our municipal code, but we will provide them with a resolution. The Planning Commission does need to provide a formal recommendation, because any changes to our zoning ordinance or subdivision ordinance require Planning Commission public hearing. And so like last time, it was just a regular agenda item. This will need to be a noticed public hearing because it's an ordinance modification. But we are looking at doing that probably in November as well. Our schedule's a little flux in terms of when projects are going to be ready to go and all of that kind of stuff. So.
Thanks. And then speaking of November, I know we sometimes, depending on Thanksgiving, we cancel our second meeting. Do you know how that falls this
So
year?
we're actually lucky this year. Our second meeting is the Tuesday after Thanksgiving.
Okay.
So I wasn't planning on proposing that.
Mhm.
It's the city council meeting that's the Tuesday before this year. So yeah, it's a little bit later this year. So
Yeah.
unless I hear that there's a bunch of people still going to be out of town, but usually people are out of town the week of Thanksgiving,
Yeah.
not the week after.
Yeah.
So
And then my last question, I had forwarded that video to you last week. Did you see that? And we're ready to
yes,
forward
and
it to
John
other-
actually sent it out to the commissioners.
Okay,
So,
I was just asking
yeah.
that. That was good. It was really interesting. I don't know if anyone's watched it yet, but it just seemed very appropriate, kind of similar sort of small town and agricultural area, and just kind of the things that they've done. And that was a little bit, kind of interesting.
It was a great video.
Yeah, it
Actually,
was
if I
well done.
thought about it, we could have queued that up and played that as the
Yeah.
training, as the training today instead of the other training video, because
Yeah.
it would have been agendized.
Yeah. Anyway, there could be
Yeah,
little
thank you for
lessons
sending-
there to
that's-
look at how to keep the balance between the agrarian, small local farms and a vibrant downtown, urban place. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I can-
Okay, and Seth, do you have any questions, staff?
None for me today. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Well, in that case, I will adjourn the meeting till our next get together, October 24th at 6 p.m. Thank you.